that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 381st edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell. In the flesh. Every day I get up, typically around 3:30, and I go to the internet and I find the day's news relating to climate change and energy. And I put together a group of 10 to 15 articles, each with a synopsis of 50 to 55 words and a link to the original article. And I put those into a post, which goes up at my blog, geoharvey.com. And you can go there. Our show today starts on the 16th of July, which is a week ago today. And you can find the articles that we're talking about on the daily posts, or you can go to energyweeknews.wordpress.com, which there's actually, in the places where this show is posted, there are links to that particular site.
Yeah, there's links to everything we talk about.
Right.
And some of them, as I mentioned, are worth looking at. And I'll try to call your attention to it.
Right.
There's one or two that we've seen here are almost must-sees.
Oh, yeah. That happens every week.
Yeah.
That one that we have a graph on, I think, is really interesting.
That's a good one. That's coming right up.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should just start.
Might as well. Can't dance.
16th of July, we're going to start with a picture of wind turbines, and that is the Imperial Valley in California.
Get that picture up there now.
You got to click on the picture first. There you go.
There we go. There
it is. This is wind turbines.
It's a little cloudy out there.
It is. In the Imperial Valley, it doesn't say that in the caption, but that's what it is. This particular article is from Smart Energy, 16th of July.
Key trends to disrupt the U.S. renewables market in the next 6 months.
This is coming right up. A Deloitte study examines the key trends, challenges, and opportunities that may affect the U.S. renewable energy industry in the second half of 2020. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. renewable energy industry's long-term growth trajectory appears to be intact.
Well, there's a couple of key trends that the report talks about. I'll touch base on them quickly. First one's market transformation. Well, I explain what that means.
Yeah, it's a minor issue.
It's a decline in energy consumption and a rise in renewable generation, which we will be talking about because it's what's happening.
Yeah.
The second one is grid resiliency, and this is important. Microgrids, often including solar and storage, help ensure power continuity.
Yes.
Okay, these are trends now. And the third one is innovation, which is new collaborations to diversify the supplier base and add flexibility. And all these things are happening no matter what we do here.
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter who's in the White House or who controls the Senate. This is all...
These are happening. This is fate.
if you wish, sure. Okay.
Well, we got a picture coming up here.
We do indeed. That is a graph.
Is that what that is?
Let's
take a look at that.
Last time I
funny looking graph too, isn't it?
It's a funny looking graph. By the way, there were a couple of graphs that I could have chosen. I chose this particular one because people are familiar with the idea of the Standard & Poor's 500. There was another graph that was more impressive, and it also came from Standard & Poor's, but it was not named with a name that I think a lot of people would recognize. So I chose this one.
What's very interesting there is the abrupt drop.
Abrupt drop, that's COVID-19. But the really interesting thing that's in the article is the abrupt drop below 100% in that orange colored. That is energy. And what that means is that the way that reads is that if you invested $100 in 2010, at the time this graph ended, you would have had $69 left.
That doesn't sound like a good investment.
No, it doesn't. But you can see in 2014 and a half, the orange chart started deviating from the blue chart and it started going down. And that was when the coal industry really got hit and the oil industry really got hit.
Absolutely.
And it really has not improved since that point.
Well, from the article, quick takeaway, the past 10 years were brutal on the fossil fuel companies throughout the world.
Yeah.
And we're going to go right on to a very related article coming right
Absolutely
up.
we are.
So.
Yeah. And
FERC data shows fossil fuels are failing.
yeah. Let's go back to the one we were just talking about because we didn't actually read that. Fossil fuel
companies are losing value globally.
Yeah, a paper published by the Australia Institute. Now, this is a United States market, or it's a world market, I guess, but it's done in the United States.
Well, it's a U.S. graph, Standard & Poor's.
That's right.
But it's an Australian publication.
That's what I was trying to say.
Small world.
Yeah. It details how fossil fuels are the worst performing sector in the ASX 300, which is the graph.
Australian Stock Exchange.
Yeah. And have been for the past decade. $100 invested in the Standard & Poor's ASX 300 Energy Index back in 2010 was only worth $104 by January 2020. That's before
that's the red graph.
That's before COVID-19.
Yeah.
And then, which means that you would have made practically nothing. And it dropped.
It looks pretty flat to me, I'll tell you.
Yeah. It dropped to 51 with COVID-19. That's from Clean Technica. Now, let's go on to that next article that you were about to read, which comes from Green Energy Times.
I'll read it again.
Please do.
FERC data shows fossil fuels are failing. Fossil fuels are failing.
Currently, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has 4 commissioners. All of them are Trump appointees. They have been pushing a fossil fuel agenda. Nevertheless, for the first time, FERC is projecting a net decline of U.S. fossil fuel generating capacity over the next 3 years.
Well, this came from Green Energy Times, and I think we know who wrote it.
I think we do, which is me. But, I went to every month, every few weeks, I go to FERC to see what's going on. And if you know where to look and how to read the charts and so forth, you can get some interesting information.
I'm sure you can, yeah.
But this one blew me away because what they're saying is that the combined capacity of all fossil fuels over the next 3 years is expected to decline by 7.2 gigawatts. And that is a
gigawatt is a bigawatt.
That's
baby.
right.
That's a lot of energy.
Well, that's the equivalent of maybe 13 or 14 Vermont Yankee nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
And they're saying fossil fuels will go down 7.2 gigawatts. Renewable energy will go up 53 gigawatts.
Yep.
And what is happening? Well, fossil fuels, even with a very low price of oil and natural gas that has happened because of fracking, fossil fuels are too expensive.
They're still too expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah, if you could get that oil and that gas for free, they would be too
They
expensive.
would still be losing money.
Yeah, that's right. So what can you say about that?
Well, there's a takeaway from here, which
I wrote.
it's good words. Coal, oil, and gas are suffering because they are increasingly obsolete.
Yes.
We never used that word on this show before, and it's accurate.
We've never used the word obsolete.
Well, there's another one coming up that's very similar to this. There's a picture of Trump with a truckload of goodies.
And that obviously is UPS.
A UPS
truck.
van with all the goodies spread out on the deck in front of him.
That was my title, by the way. I just stuck that on there. I didn't know what else to call it. But this is from BBC.
Trump weakens environmental law to speed up infrastructure projects. Duh.
We want you to lose your money even faster. President Trump has announced alternatives to a landmark, alterations to a landmark environmental law as a controversial move to allow projects to go ahead with less oversight Mr. Trump touted changes to the National Environmental Protection Act, which, by the way, was signed by Richard Nixon.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah,
Oh, man.
interesting.
As
Well,
a historic
it's kind of easy to see what he's really doing, but he says this is to speed up the reviews of major infrastructure projects. But really, critics say the changes are a giveaway to polluters.
Yeah.
Okay? So far, the administration has rolled back more than 100 environmental rules. What do we need those things for?
Yeah, right. Okay.
We got a nice picture coming up. Let's get that
We
one.
do, and we're up to Friday, July 17th.
There it is.
We have a picture of the Sydney Opera House, in case anybody didn't know what that
That's
is.
an interesting looking building,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is the only building I know of that looks like that.
I have to agree.
Okay,
I have to
what do you
agree.
got for a title?
Central Sydney now runs 100% on renewable energy.
Sydney is sourcing clean energy from, and I'm having trouble scrolling the computer, wind and solar farms in New South Wales, and the center part of the city is now running on 100% renewable energy. The move is estimated to reduce CO2 emissions by about 20,000 tons, TONNES, so that's metric tons, every year, and it will save about 500,000 Australian dollars per
That's
year.
about 350 grand US.
Yeah. So they're saving a lot of money by using the renewable energy instead of what they had had.
I was reading this, I was wondering, why is it New South Wales? Why not New Wales? You've been over there. What's the difference between South Wales and North Wales?
Well, there's two differences. Okay.
Yeah.
South Wales was taken over by the King of England first.
By the who?
King of England.
Okay.
And North Wales was independent for a fairly long time after that.
Okay.
But also,
Well, the Welsh are Celts, aren't they?
yes, they are. The Welsh language in South Wales is a little bit different than it is in North Wales. And a person who is speaking Welsh and understands that difference would have no difficulty. But a person who has just learned one dialect would not really.
Wouldn't be able to understand the other one.
I'm thinking of an example. Bethady Hanuchi.
Huh?
Bethady Hanuchi, which means what is your name?
Okay.
In one dialect is Beth Yuchanuchi in the other. Beth Adich Hanuchi and Beth Yuchanuchi. So, it's a little bit more difference than there is between the language of New England, for example, and Virginia. But it's a difference. And the people who went to Australia from South Wales wanted to have South Wales.
I guess they did. New South Jersey.
New South Jersey. There you go.
Well, Sydney's mayor stated that the cities contribute to 70% of greenhouse emissions worldwide.
I don't think that's correct. I'm not sure how they calculate that because
I think it's based on industry more than population.
yeah, the thing is that transportation takes a lot, and puts a lot of emissions out, and industry puts out a lot of emissions. I'm not sure how they calculate the cities at 70%.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We
Let's see
do,
if we
and
can
this
get
is a
that
picture
one
of
up there.
of a house
There
with
it
a
is.
Tesla.
There it is.
This house, by the way, belongs to Kyle Field, who's the author of this article.
The author of this.
And
Nice house.
We're going to see the same house next Thursday when we do the show next week, because one of the articles kicking the show off is going to be.
Has the house changed, or is it the same picture?
No, it's taken from a different angle.
Well, in case you have not noticed, there's a solar roof on that house.
you really don't notice.
No, you don't.
You really don't. And
It's
by
just
the
a blue
way,
roof.
Tesla has said that it in the last few months, even despite the pandemic, they have increased the output of their solar roof modules by about 300%. So that we're going to be talking about that next week.
Well, the article states that a third of U.S. workers want to stop commuting and work remotely.
Which would make a big difference in our carbon emissions.
Absolutely.
And it would also be very destructive to the companies that sell them gasoline. A study by Morning Consult found that a third of Americans surveyed want to work from home. The majority say that it has given them more time during the day. Of course, they don't have to commute. Improved their health, they don't have to breathe the air out on the road, and brought them closer to their family members, all without impacting productivity.
Well, as we're now experiencing, it can be done.
Yeah.
And I've seen the Zoom popping up all over the place.
Zoom is popping up all over the place.
And it's working.
I think we're going to use Zoom for the representative town meeting this year in Brattleboro.
Okay, yeah.
Zoom did have some issues, but that was months ago, and they've probably completely cleared them up.
Well, there's a takeaway here.
Yeah.
Many Americans who are able to work remotely have had mostly positive experiences. That's current.
Yeah.
Okay, 3/4 of those surveyed would like to work remotely at least one day a week.
Yeah.
Okay, almost half believe that virtual meetings are at least as effective as in-person meetings.
Well,
now, that's an interesting.
They have these in-person meetings, virtual meetings have a huge advantage, and that is you can sit down in front of a camera with your shirt on, and you don't have to tell everybody that everything else you've got is pajamas.
I hear you. A worldwide poll revealed that 3/4 believed working from home was one of the most effective ways to help the environment. Duh. A major reason for this was obvious, cutting their commute.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's move along here. We got another picture coming up.
And we are up to Saturday, July 18th.
Let's get that
I think this is an interesting photograph.
Oh, it is. It's a cable laying vessel.
Yeah, and you remember I told you last week that there was an empty spool, that I would show you a picture of an empty spool?
Well, there's an empty spool in the middle of that. Well, I don't know if it's empty or not.
Yeah, the picture that I had in mind was not this picture. But that big round thing on
That's
the deck
a
of
spool.
that is a spool. And
I've seen cable laying ships, and that's about half the size of the ones I've seen.
Really? Yeah, I didn't think this was very big. But you'll notice on the right side of the picture, there's a flat area above the bow of that ship, and that's there, so a helicopter.
I was just going to say that's a helicopter landing pad. Isn't
Yeah, that's right. This ship is not tiny, but it's not exactly the Queen Mary.
Well, NKT is the name of a company, and it's Norwegian for Nordic Cable and Wire Factories.
Okay.
Okay. And the article says NKT to supply SSE's Shetland Link. And
Right.
SSE stands for the Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks. All of these acronyms, you got to look them up because you don't know what they're talking about.
And the first thing that I have to read here is SSEN, which is exactly what you said. Transmission has awarded NKT the contract to deliver and install a high-voltage DC interconnector to the Shetland Isles. It's worth about 235 million euros. The turnkey order is for two 320 kilovolt HVDC cables, installation by the cable laying vessel NKT Victoria, which is the one in the picture, and protection of the cables. And
it's about 160 miles. It's a good length.
This is long.
And there's two cables.
And there's two cables. And Shetland is way far out compared to Orkney, and which is north of Scotland. Right. And it's interesting.
160 miles out.
Yeah, it's interesting to note. I think I would have expected them to do high voltage DC, but high voltage DC has got a whole bunch of advantages over AC for these long.
Very low losses.
Yeah,
that's the biggest advantage.
I've read that AC electricity travels on the surface of the cable.
The surface of the conductor.
Yeah,
it does. It wants to, anyhow.
And DC wants to go just wherever, which means you can reduce the cost of the cable and carry the same amount of electricity.
You can.
And then there's other reasons too. But in the past, as the electric grid in the United States, for example, and other places was being developed, we used AC because you can.
You can bring it up and down.
Bring it up and down in voltage much more easily than you can with DC. Now we've got digital systems.
We've got solid state transformers.
Right. And that slide is of a jack-up ship? No, this slide is a jack-up ship.
Yeah, let's
There we go.
let's
That's
get
a
the
jack-up
jack-up
ship.
ship up there.
Let's put the jack-up ship up.
Come on, you.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay, and this...
Doesn't look like it's jacked up, though. We've seen some pictures where it was.
Well, actually, it is jacked up, and you don't notice it because on the right side, kind of to the left of the helicopter landing pad, you'll notice lattice works with, it looks like red and white.
Oh, that's the jack.
Those are the
That's
jacks.
the jack, yeah.
That's right.
Well, they jack them up just to eliminate the problems from tide and from waves.
Yeah.
They get it up
They
above
want-
all of that.
They want that ship to be steady.
Solid, right?
And,
exactly.
and you know, that's how they do it. And by the way, the previous article was from Renews, and this one is from REVE.
And it says, I quote, wind energy will play an important role in making renewable energy the base for Japan.
For Japan, of all places.
Yeah.
Here, you know, the Japanese, well, Japanese energy is a complicated issue. Japan will build more offshore wind farms as part of its shift away from fossil fuels. Industry Minister Hiroshi Kajiyama said, Japan will aim to add capacity to generate 1 gigawatt each year, eventually reaching a combined 30 gigawatts by 2040.
Well, it says that Japan is currently generating 20,000 kilowatts. Or if you're like me, you have a hard time, it's 0.02 gigawatts through offshore wind farms. The country has 150 coal-powered units right now.
Yeah.
Critics say a plan to scrap about 100 of them over the next decade isn't enough.
Yeah. And they're planning on scrapping those plants.
Exactly.
So these offshore wind farms, I think, are really superior.
Well, we got another one coming up here.
Do we don't have a picture for the next one.
We got no picture.
Yeah, this
Look
is,
ashamed.
I don't know what to say. Enercom Inc.
Yes. Enercom and Greenbacker, which is a company, renewable energy company. This is local. Reports on progress for the solar project on a landfill in Brattleboro, Vermont.
I've been there.
And Greenbacker is a holding company located in Kansas City.
Yeah. And I was born not far from Kansas City.
You were what?
Born not far from Kansas City.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very
yes.
much. The 5.73 megawatt solar array at the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District's
That's
closed
there already.
landfill. It's built. It's been running for a while. It provides electricity to 17 subscribers, and the article lists them all.
I've got them. I'll read them off.
Oh, okay. Mostly towns and schools. In 2019, it saved them an estimated $470,000.
Well, the towns are Brattleboro, Dummerston, Halifax, Newfane, Reedsboro, Vernon, Wardsboro, and Wilmington.
How about that?
Okay, and the schools, Brattleboro Union High School, Dummerston, Guilford, Putney, Vernon, Landmark, and Marlborough colleges. And in addition, the Brattleboro Retreat and the Wyndham Solid Waste Management Districts are all hooked up to
They're
this.
all hooked up to that.
The solar array, this is an interesting one. It's the largest net metering project in Vermont
Yes.
and was purchased by Greenbacker last fall.
There
It
you
is
go.
16,000 approximate solar panels on 25 acres of capped landfill. And they really can't do anything else with that
You
land.
cannot do much with capped landfill.
So this is a win-win situation.
Capped landfill is brownfield. You wouldn't want to make it into a park because it can potentially toxic.
There's bad stuff underneath that
And
cap.
you
They've
know,
been using it, what, for 40 years as a dump.
Yeah. So
Well, we got a picture coming up here.
we do now have a picture coming up. We are at Sunday, July 19th.
And let's get that picture up here.
And this is from WUSF News.
Whoever they are.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
NOAA, we'll figure out who that is,
Yeah.
gives the University of Miami up to $310 million to continue leading climate and ocean research. And that's Miami, Florida.
Right. You know, when I first hit this article, I thought, Miami, are they talking about Miami, Florida? Or are they talking about Miami University?
Which is in Ohio.
Which is in Ohio. In Florida, the Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Science, a research institute at the University of Miami that has done research on climate change, hurricanes, and sick reefs, is setting up to $310 million, is getting up to $300 million from NOAA, which is the National Oceanic
and Atmospheric
Administration.
Yep.
Oceanic and Atmospheric.
These acronyms are killing me.
Well,
I got to get them tattooed on the back of my hand.
I know. And I think I used to live in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and there were a lot of people around who worked at NOAA in Woods Hole.
Okay.
And it was like everybody knew NOAA, NOAA, but ask them what it meant, forget it.
Well, the Cooperative Institute that we just talked about is going to focus on climate research, coastal resilience, and studying ocean conditions, protecting ecosystems like reefs by building models to produce forecasts and inform management decisions. So they're doing some good stuff.
Yes, yes. Okay, our next, I love this. I looked at this and I thought, steamboat pilot and today?
Huh?
The next article. Do you have more on the NOAA article?
No, I got more on that, but the next one is Colorado.
That's right. And
Okay.
the publication is called Steamboat
Steamboat
Pilot.
Pilot.
and
Yes,
Today.
it is. You're absolutely right.
And I looked at that and I thought, wait a minute. read the title, Tom.
We now know how many billions of gallons of water Colorado will save by closing coal-fired power plants.
Right. An analysis by the Energy and Policy Institute found that closing 30 coal-fired generating units in the West would save up over 76 billion gallons of river and groundwater a year in increasingly parched regions.
Well, where they're doing that, the water they save, they can use for farming.
Yeah.
Well, there are potential water savings in 7 western states: Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado,
Yeah.
Utah, Nevada, Montana, and Wyoming, where the coal plants are set to close over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And it says here the savings are significant in every state.
Yeah.
And reading into the article, they're going to use it for irrigation.
Yes. Steamboat Pilot and Today is a publication in a town in Colorado called Steamboat.
Okay, so they're not steamboat pilots?
No. And there's, I thought, wait a minute. I wanted to find out where Steamboat was, so I looked it up. It's in the northwest part of the state, which means it's west of the mountains, or west of enough mountains that you can't get to a good-sized river very easily. And Steamboat actually is on a river, but it's not a river that you would put a steamboat on. And the story was that the people who first lived there were in the they were setting up their community, and they started
I
noticing.
bet gold was involved
No,
somewhere. No?
they started noticing a sound that sounded like a steam engine,
Oh,
and it sounded like a steam engine,
what
not
was it?
like a locomotive, but like a steamboat,
Yeah.
which operates at a different speed or something. And they went to find
Different
out.
chugs.
They went, down the river or up the river or whatever it was, because some of them were convinced that there was a steamboat on this river. And what they found was it was hot springs. And the hot springs were chugging.
Making noise?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, dear. Okay. We have speaking of
There's another
steamboats,
picture coming up here.
we have a picture of a stranded ship.
That's an interesting looking structure there in the front.
Yeah,
That was installed obviously after the ship was built.
I don't know. I think
I can't imagine a normal ship in commerce having something like that on it.
I can, because it would make sense to have a structure that would
But
tie
you're
that
going to anchor it for a long time.
loading and unloading.
You think?
I can imagine that being used for loading and unloading. Because they're loading and unloading oil. So they would want to come up to a pipeline. And they can't come into the port because it's too deep. So they need to be...
No, they can't, right. We've talked about that.
Yeah, and so this is a big ship. That ship holds 1.1 million barrels of oil.
We're going to mention exactly that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the time is running out to prevent an oil spill from a ticking time bomb tanker in Yemen. I'm glad it's in Yemen, but...
the UN is warning about this.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been sitting out there for 5 years,
Yeah.
and nobody's touched it.
Well, nobody...
They haven't been doing maintenance on it.
They haven't been doing maintenance. It's under the... Well, let me read the thing here. Time is running out to prevent a decaying tanker off the coast of Yemen from dumping its load of 1.1 million barrels of oil into the Red Sea, sparking an environmental catastrophe, the UN has warned. The vessel is under the control of Houthi rebels.
There'll be a whole show trying to explain who the Houthis are and what they're doing.
Well, the Houthi rebels, I mean, it's enough to say that in that part of the world you have rebels of various types.
Well, it's religious too. They're Shias rather than Sunnis.
Absolutely, and they're supported by Iran because they're Shias, and you know, it's
pretty complicated.
And they apparently have some people on that ship.
They do. That's what the article said.
And the engine room flooded.
Yeah.
So they can't operate normally. They can't pump out the bilges and do things like that. It's just
because there is no engine.
There's no engine. So they've been negotiating for a long time to figure out how to turn this ship over to somebody who can take it over. And
the article says the ship could release 4 times more oil than the Exxon Valdez.
Right.
And the oil is estimated to be worth $40 million.
Which is why the Houthis don't want to give it up.
They don't want to give it up. Well, the best option is for the oil to be offloaded from the ship, which you just said is going to be very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. I'm glad it's not around here.
That was on CNN. And we're up to Monday, July 20th.
We are that. We are.
We have a very uninteresting picture of lithium chloride.
Looks like salt.
Well, it is.
Probably tastes like salt.
It is a type of salt.
There's lithium chloride, sodium chloride. It's kissing cousins.
They are indeed. But, you know, all these things that are metallic and whatever, like it could have been potassium sulfate and it would still be a salt.
The lithium chloride, sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, they're all salt.
Yeah.
And they taste like salt.
They all taste like salt, although you can't tell the
Lithium
difference.
can be extracted from groundwater at geothermal installations. Well, this is interesting.
Isn't it? This is from Clean Technica. Scientists at the KIT Energy Center, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, that's KIT, say there is enough lithium dissolved in groundwater extracted by German geothermal heating and electricity plants to meet the needs of most or possibly all of Germany's battery manufacturers.
Well, the article explains that a little bit. They say Germany has sufficient battery factories to supply the needs of its domestic auto industry. However, lithium to manufacture the battery cells currently comes from other countries.
Right.
Okay, so in order to obtain lithium from local sources in a manner with few environmental implications would be a huge plus.
Right.
That's basically what this article is about.
Yes, yes. And if they can do that to get lithium, then that's probably something that can be done all over the world.
Very likely.
Yeah.
I mean, the article's about Germany, but what you say is true.
And possibly even from the ocean.
From what?
The ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got another picture coming up here.
We do, and I don't know whether that is called a Bode Work or Bode Werk or what. It looks like it should be a German name with W-E-R-K.
I think it's Dutch.
Okay, Dutch would make sense.
I think it's Dutch. Well, you can see the battery in the front.
Yes, you can. And a very intent-looking guy walking behind that plow.
He looks like he's working pretty hard.
This is from Clean Technica.
Well, this says Bode Werk Bodeverk's electric conversion kit set to transform lives. It's an interesting article.
Yep. Bodeverk is looking to transform lives in Africa, starting in Uganda with its electric products powered by upcycled old laptop batteries.
Absolutely.
These are the batteries of the laptops that have died.
Well, that's exactly right. Well, upcycle, I had to look up what that word means.
Yeah.
To recycle in such a way that the resulting product is of a higher value than the original item.
Right.
So you're getting old batteries and they're recycling them. They're fixing them up, recharging them, and using them.
And they've got all kinds of products. And what we're seeing here is their tractor, which is one of their largest products. But they have all kinds of products, and they're just taking the junk that's thrown away from the United States and Europe and places like that.
Well, this Bodeverk is actually an African company.
Yes, which I think is based in.
It says many African farmers are still using ox-drawn and human-powered farming implements.
You know, this is
that's
interesting.
what the article
Oxen are cattle. And keeping them means that they're going to be burping methane.
Yeah.
Which means this is actually displacing greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes, it is. Well, there's an interesting video on that site. There's some images of the electric plow and a threshing machine that we're looking at right there.
Yeah.
And the article says there's a big demand for motorcycles.
Yes.
Okay, which they use all over the world as taxis.
Yes.
Okay. In Kenya alone, there's over 200,000 registered motorcycles. That's more than Brattleboro, I think.
Do you think? There used to be that guy down on.
Yeah, he died. He got in an
died.
automobile accident. Yeah, what was his name?
I don't remember.
I knew the guy.
He was a very, very loved person.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Yeah. I don't think I ever talked with him. Yes, I did, but not very much. But he had that place, and there were so many motorcycles. Motorcycle guys would come from miles around just to.
I think they were just coming there to talk.
Yeah, just to chat.
Just to chat.
Okay, we have a picture of Leeward.
Leeward, is that Leeward or Leeward?
My father, who was a in the Navy.
Yeah, he would know.
He said it was Leeward.
That's Leeward, huh?
Yeah.
Well, we got the picture up already.
We have the picture up already, and this is from UH System Current News. UH being University of Hawaii. Yeah.
Leeward College becomes Hawaii's first net zero campus.
Hawaii's Leeward Community College has, and knowing the way things go, they might in Hawaii just pronounce it Leeward. Who knows? Has become one of the first virtually net metered campuses in the country. It is generating 97% of its energy through on-site PV systems, and that picture is a solar canopy over.
I'm going to put it up again. There's a lot of solar panels there.
Over a parking lot.
Over the parking lot.
Yeah.
Good dual use, but
yes,
you can see it's exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And in a hot climate. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Keep your heart.
And you know what this reminds me of is I used to work in an office that was what had been a plant right on the shore in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I remember going out of the place and seeing a very odd-shaped dent.
Odd-shaped what?
Dent in the hood of my car.
Oh boy!
It was well in from the outside edge of the car, and it was kind of a roundish dent that had ridges inside it.
Okay, you're going to tell us what happened.
Well, I couldn't figure that out. But weeks later, I saw what I'm sure caused it. The seagulls would grab clams.
They do that.
And they would fly up in the air and drop them.
They do that to break the shell.
To break the shell.
Who says they're dumb?
And one of them had dropped a clam on my car. Well,
oh boy.
Here, that glass might be strong enough that it wouldn't crack even from a thing like that.
Get the picture up again.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, 3,600. From the article.
Yeah.
3,600 PV modules.
Yeah.
Capable of generating 1.7 megawatts.
Yeah.
Okay. Hawaii has committed to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2045. And they're on their way. They're going. They'll probably make it.
Yep. I think they will. One of the things about Hawaii is that it's a perfect place for renewable energy because they don't have any nuclear power plants, and
they don't have oil.
They don't have oil. They don't have gas. They don't have coal. Everything that they do has got to be imported, with the exception, of course, of what they can generate.
They got plenty of sun.
They got plenty of sun. They got plenty of wind. They've got lots of waves. They've got a lot of stuff that they can do in Hawaii to make their own electricity, and they want to do that. Okay, we're
up. Blame them at all.
Up to Tuesday.
Another picture coming up.
We do indeed. Oh man.
Let's get that.
This is for Tuesday, July 21st, and I got that picture from Wikimedia Commons.
Okay.
Because I wanted a picture, and I thought, who is Noble Energy? I've never heard of them. But
interesting looking trucks. They call them thumper trucks.
Thumper trucks.
And they set off seismic waves used for oil exploration.
They go out into the countryside and thump to set off seismic waves in order.
Then they look at that on a screen.
That's right. This is also called infrasound. They're generating huge amounts of infrasound. Okay, this is from CNN.
Chevron will buy Noble Energy for $5 billion.
Tom, had you ever heard of Noble Energy?
No.
Neither had I.
The biggest oil deal since the pandemic. Well, that doesn't mean a lot.
No, it doesn't. Chevron announced it would acquire Noble Energy for $5 billion. It is the biggest energy deal since the COVID-19 pandemic decimated the oil industry. The shareholders of Noble will receive Chevron stock in this all-stock transaction. And I want to tell you my take on this, which I didn't get from the article. Chevron is in the oil industry.
Who?
Chevron is in the oil industry, which is
Are they really?
in trouble. Now
Chevron's in trouble.
The whole industry is in trouble. Now Chevron,
they're buying up a bunch of small companies.
They didn't, but they're not even paying for them. They're giving people stock.
Yeah.
Which means it isn't money going out, but
it's just paper.
It's just paper, but they're getting deeper and deeper into the oil industry. They're not setting themselves up to move into a new paradigm. And
not really.
It does not look to me like a healthy transaction.
Well, the article says something along that lines. America's shale oil and gas industry has been hit hard during the pandemic.
Yes.
Demand has tumbled, prices fell. Okay? Many producers have incurred large debt before the recession hit.
Yeah.
And that's what Chevron is doing. They're buying that debt. They're buying these companies with the debt. So the pigeons could come home to roost with disastrous results.
Yes. In addition to giving out paper, they're assuming the debt.
That's what they're doing.
And, as you said, the pigeons could come home to roost.
Debt doesn't go away by itself.
Well, some people can make it go away by itself.
Well, yeah, you got to declare bankruptcy.
Donald Trump has done that 6 times.
I know.
That's why he loves debt.
Yeah.
It's a debt,
Good way to make money. Borrow some money.
Pay yourself a big salary, declare bankruptcy, let
you don't
the
have to pay it back.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that?
Well, I think Tom, I don't know, but I kind of suspect that you're honest.
Well, we got a nice picture of a fish coming up here. Let's get that picture up.
The picture isn't the fish, though. The picture is the coral. The article is...
I thought it was cauliflower.
Did you? It looks like cauliflower, doesn't it? This is from The Guardian.
Red Sea corals heat tolerance offers hope for a climate crisis. By the way, this is a good article, long article. It's got a lot of pictures.
A lot of good pictures.
Interesting article.
Hard to figure out which picture I wanted to put in. Reefs from the Gulf of Aqaba in the Red Sea survived when scientists cracked up the heat above the lethal threshold and waited for them to die. The scientists said the corals taken from the Gulf of Aqaba appeared untroubled by an increase in temperature of 7 degrees. And in fact, They did better.
It looked like they were pretty happy.
They looked pretty happy. And
Well, the Gulf of Aqaba, for those who want to know where it is, it's the tip of the Red Sea,
yeah,
the northern end. It's east of Sinai, and it's west of Arabia, and it's stuck right in there.
and for those people who have seen Lawrence of Arabia, Aqaba was the town that they attacked in the first half of that film, and took. And this was a very important thing.
Okay, you
set
take
it
your word
all
for
up. But the Sinai, of course, has these two arms of the Red Sea on the east and on the west. And this is
Say this again?
Sinai has
Sinai,
two
yeah.
arms of the
Yes,
Red Sea
right,
on
exactly.
the east and the west. And this
And this is the
eastern.
east arm.
Yeah, and these corals are able to take the heat. So what they're obviously thinking of doing is taking them and seeing if they'll grow in other parts of the world.
That's what they're planning on doing. There's a map of that area there. There's a lot of these coral reefs in that area, all around the Red Sea. And
This could be a little bit more
Persian Gulf.
complicated than it seems, though, because what happens with the coral in the Great Barrier Reef is that it gets bleached.
that's exactly right. It's a loss of color.
It's a loss.
That's a sign that they're sick.
Yeah, but they don't die. What's dying is the algae that they have in them.
Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of stuff going on here that we don't really understand. The algae are very important, and the algae are able to take these higher temperatures. The other thing is, are they going
So
to...
that's significant.
It is. The other thing is, are they going to transplant the coral and the algae? Or maybe are they going to use something from the coral to do genetically modified algae?
Somehow bring the algae
Yeah,
over to some
there's
other place.
a lot of research that can be done on this, and I don't like the idea of genetically modified organisms, but
Well, some
honestly,
of them aren't too cool.
some of them are not too cool. That's right, absolutely. But I'm not sure that we are going to be able to survive in the future without doing that in some ways.
You're
So-
right. We've actually talked about that in the past.
Yeah,
But we got a new one coming up here, and this is local. This is a must-read.
yeah. This is from Clean Technica.
Co-op power raises the bar for community solar.
You know, this article didn't say that Co-op Power was based in Greenfield.
Well, it's not.
Oh, where is it?
It's in Florence.
Oh, it's in Florence.
They were in Greenfield. I'm a member of Co-op Power, and I have been down there and talked to Lynn.
Yeah,
We're going to get her on the show.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
You know, an effort to address renewable energy goals and make renewable energy accessible to everyone is growing in the Northeast. Co-op Power is on the front lines, coordinating community power and building valuable energy resources to change legislation and the lives of many nationwide. And the thing that's interesting about this to me is Co-op Power has been doing what? Working for 15 years?
Oh, at least.
Yeah. And what the...
Longer than that. And they're basically working with people to help them get hooked up with renewables.
Right. And they did a bunch of things. They were making biodiesel.
Yes,
They were
still are.
helping people install solar
Yeah.
systems on their own homes. They're doing a lot of this kind of stuff, and it started as just kind of a little bitty co-op, but it keeps growing. And
Well, they're doing some good stuff.
yeah,
I'll read a quick link about a quick article, some words from the article.
okay,
The link that comes with this enables listening to a half-an-hour interview with Lynn Benander,
yeah,
who's the president of Co-op Power.
right,
And she's interesting to talk to, kind of listen to that link.
yeah,
And Co-op Power, they describe themselves as a consumer-owned cooperative,
right,
working to make renewable energy more accessible for people in the northeastern United States. And that's where they work, New York and New England.
right.
I don't think they
Originally,
even work in Connecticut or New Jersey.
well, they're kind of spreading and spreading.
But they're doing a lot right now in New York,
Yeah,
down in Brooklyn particularly.
okay.
But
Well,
we were up to our last article.
Our
We got
last
a map-
articles.
We got a graph coming up. And the graph
We're
is
up,
important.
up to Wednesday, but we've got 3 more articles. This graph is fascinating. This article is from Yahoo Canada Finance.
And,
There it is.
well, the graph, of course, is the first half of 2020 compared to the first half of 2019.
This is growth.
It's a growth, exactly. And it says green power beats fossil fuels for the first time in Europe.
The graph and the article, the bulk of the article, including all of the synopsis, are really
I'll leave it up.
They're really not about identical things, but we'll talk about both. About 40% of the electricity in the first half of the 27 EU countries came from renewable sources, compared to 34% from plants burning fossil fuels. The London environmental group Ember said. As a result, CO2 emissions from the power sector fell 23%.
Well, renewable power contributed a bigger share than fossil fuels as the fallout from the pandemic cut energy demand.
Yes.
Output from wind and solar is increasing because more plants are coming online.
Right.
Okay, wet conditions have boosted hydropower.
Yeah.
And right now, this is interesting. Coal was by far the biggest loser.
Well, you can see this on the graph.
That's exactly what you can see.
Now, this is power generation, so it doesn't tell you what the capacity
So all the
was.
stuff on the left side, the orange stuff, is losing.
Is losing. Hard coal lost the most. Lignite, which is brown coal, lost next. Obviously, other fossil is all kinds of stuff. In the EU, that's going to include stuff from coal tar to peat.
Yep.
And then nuclear is down and gas is down, which is also interesting.
Yeah, nuclear is down, I'm surprised. And gas is down, I'm surprised. 'Cause,
I was surprised too. The big winners here are wind, hydro, and solar.
solar's growing, and it's quite obvious. The prices are coming down, and it's getting to the point where you can't afford not to do it.
Yeah. And the reason why, there's very clearly more down here than there is up. But the reason why there's more down than up is not somebody playing games with numbers. It's because demand was down. The actual amount of electricity was down overall. So we're a lot of people are saying we're at the point where the change is actually happening, big time.
Well, we got another picture coming up here.
We do
Let's
indeed.
get this picture.
This is I couldn't resist putting this picture
It's
up.
kind of a pretty spot, isn't it?
Nakhchivan? Where the blazes
I
is
would-
Nakhchivan?
I'll give you 90% for that anyhow.
If you had asked me where Nakhchivan was, I would not have been able to answer. On the other hand, if you had showed me an outline map,
What is a map of it there?
yeah, if you had showed me that map with nothing written in,
Well, I'll mention.
I would have
will
said
mention where it is.
this place is part of Armenia, because I knew that much. I didn't know that it was called Nakhchivan.
Well, it's not a part of Armenia.
I mean, I didn't mean Armenia. I meant Azerbaijan. I'm sorry,
Yeah, it's separated from the rest of
Azerbaijan.
by Armenia.
And there's a lot of this article I didn't know. Nakhchivan was the first part of the Soviet Union to declare.
That's what it says. Well, it's the world's most sustainable nation, and that's a question mark. And it's between Armenia and Iran.
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to read the rest of it, I guess.
Okay. As a result of regional conflicts, residents of Nakhchivan, an enclave of Azerbaijan,
Well, it's an exclave.
an exclave. You're right. It developed an unwavering sense of self-sufficiency born from scarcity and necessity. You know, you really read the article and you'll see what this is all about, because they had two small bridges connecting them to the rest of the world. And that's everything that they had to come in over those two small bridges.
So they had to become self-sufficient.
They did.
They had no choice.
Okay, they began producing their own goods, planting their own food, based strictly on pesticide-free or all organic food policy.
We couldn't get the pesticides. So they did it themselves the old-fashioned way with horse manure.
And this article, there's a place in the article where the person is talking about food and says, I ate the tomato. It was the best I had ever tasted.
I read that.
And I thought, what does this tell you?
Well, it's a quick rundown on this country here, Nakhchivan. It's an autonomous republic of the country of Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Slightly larger than Rhode Island, so it's not a big place. It is geographically severed from its nation by a small strip of Armenia.
Yeah.
So it's sitting there over to the side.
Yes.
Okay? And the health-conscious land-to-table ethos ensures that all the food comes from local sources.
Yeah.
They don't have any choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating article. A lot of good pictures.
Instead of losing, these guys are winning.
Yeah. A lot of good pictures. And
that was an interesting article in any case.
One more article.
We got another picture here. Who's that guy?
Who is that guy?
Who is that guy?
That's the son of Mario Cuomo, I think.
Yeah, that's Andrew Cuomo. And he's the governor of New York right now.
Yeah, and he's also the brother of Chris Cuomo.
Yeah. I liked Mario Cuomo.
I did too.
He was a good guy.
Yeah. What do you got for a title?
New York State announces 4 gigawatts in renewables solicitations. Remember, gigawatts is bigawatts.
This is from Renews. New York State Governor Andrew M. Cuomo has announced that 4 gigawatts of renewable energy solicitations and a multi-billion-dollar port strategy.
That's important.
It sure is. This will include a second solicitation of offshore wind, seeking up to 2.5 gigawatts of projects, said to be the largest in the nation's history.
Well, last year they solicited 1.7 gigawatts. So they're increasing that. And they're getting up there to the big numbers.
We're getting into the big numbers. They're getting to, what they're looking at here is they're replacing coal, they're replacing natural gas, they're replacing nuclear. And, I was talking with somebody last night, and he said we're seeing peaking plants not being built because they're putting in solar and batteries. I said, I got news for you. We're seeing peaking plants being torn down so that batteries can be put in, like that.
In New York, right?
In New York,
yeah,
in
right
Queens,
now.
I think. Yeah.
Well, the article is interesting. There's an interesting part of this article. The solicitation requires offshore wind generators to partner with a New York port. And a New York port isn't the whole port of New York. It's these.
Yes. Yeah.
To stage, construct, and manufacture key components,
Yes.
supporting the long-term development of offshore wind projects.
Right.
Not only in New York, but along the entire East Coast.
Well, he wants
So
to
they're building up
He wants to build up the economy of Long Island, and
it's going to work.
it's going to work. Okay,
That's the last article.
That's our last article, and we have a couple of minutes. I want to tell you about something that happened this week. I got
Well, even if I don't want to hear it, I'm going to anyhow, right?
I was assigned to write an article for Green Energy Times on a business called Tiny Solar Vermont, which is Tiny Solar is one word, Vermont is the second, and if you put them all together, you get Tiny Solar Vermont, and then you put .com on that, and you find their website. And they say it sells solar systems ranging from 20 watts to 150 watts.
Well, you were telling me what a 21 was, not much bigger than your computer.
Yeah, it's not much bigger than this computer. It's about this big.
Yeah.
And I bought one.
Okay.
I bought a 20-watt solar panel that was rigged up in the way that this was rigged up so that I could use it. This is a small company. I didn't want to say send me a sample that I can review, but I did want to review it. But I also thought this is a good idea. So I got one because I think it's a good idea to have some kind of backup power. And this is backup power. It's highly portable. You could almost put it in a backpack. And,
Oh, sure.
And I got the solar panel, which was wired so that a cigarette lighter plug could go into it.
Okay.
On the side, and it had a little it's not an inverter. It's a thing that changes from 12 volt to 5 volt. What would you call that?
Well, if it's AC, it's a transformer.
It's
If it's
DC.
DC, it wouldn't be an inverter, it'd be a diverter.
Diverter. Okay. But there's a thing that you can plug in
Yeah.
cigarette part, and these are common. You get them at auto parts stores. And
A lot of cell phone type accessories
Exactly.
operate on 5
Exactly.
volts.
yeah.
In your car's
And
12 volts.
I took that thing, and sometimes for one reason or another, I have a little Raspberry Pi computer with its own monitor that I use here, and I plugged that into it while I was sitting in the sun, and it just turned on, which was kind of amazing to me, even though it's really what is supposed to happen. And there's enough electricity in this thing that I could have charged a couple of cell phones too, And so if you think about Hurricane Maria, when Maria hit and we watched the people in Puerto Rico just struggling without electricity, the first thing they talked about when they said they needed electrical power was the ability to plug in a cell phone to charge it.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
what this little thing will do. Well, the bigger systems have batteries, so you can do more and more with the bigger systems.
Yeah, okay.
But these things are.
Recharging your cell phone can be pretty important.
It can be, and again,
If you can do it from the sun, that's great. You can do it anywhere.
It reminds me of that story about the guy in Serbia at the time that Bill Clinton was bombing Serbia, and they had that war going on and all
Yeah.
of that. There was a village in Serbia where they had no electricity for a year. And the people had no contact, particularly with the outside world. They didn't have any ability to talk by phone. They didn't have any contact. And this guy figured out that he could generate electricity by turning a motor from a washing machine, which I think must have meant that it was a DC washing machine. I'm not sure, but by turning the motor, he could get electricity. So he hooked it up to a paddle and put it on a little raft and put it out in the river where the river was turning the paddle. And that gave him enough electricity to power a light bulb and a radio, which is how the people in that town got their news for the next year.
That's their connection to the outside world.
Which means, the lesson from this is a little bit of electricity
can do a lot.
Can do a lot. If you have a chargeable flashlight, you've got something. It's worthwhile. But you got to charge it with something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why you use these little tiny backup systems, which can also be used for going through the countryside, backpacking and stuff like that, so you can listen to the radio while you're out in the middle of the woods.
Well, you need a little moving water.
Yeah, well, for what he was doing, but for the little solar panel, all you need is the sun.
Yep.
So anyway, I guess that's it for the week.
I had a solar-powered radio when I was in high school.
Did you?
I made it.
Yeah.
You remember what a selenium rectifier is?
No.
Well, every radio had a selenium rectifier.
Right.
A little thing with fins on it.
Okay.
And it turns out if you took the fins, if you took it apart and took the paint off it, it was photovoltaic. It would generate electricity.
Oh my God.
From the sun. Of course, I read about that,
Yeah.
but that's what I hooked up. So I had this little 2-transistor radio that I made, and I had the lights. So I could play it anywhere.
Wow. Okay, put us up, Tom, and we'll say goodbye.
I guess we can. I guess I can do that.
And we hope.
I think I just did that.
I should go to the next slide. Have a preposterously beautiful week.
Well, let's get that one up there.
Yeah, let's do that. There you go. Have a preposterously beautiful week. It's actually there. It's in print. I wasn't making it up. I read it. Of course, I made it up and put it in print. So, goodbye, everybody.
Adios.
Have a lovely week, and come back next time.